The Nigerian custodial system. The vulnerable state of released inmates or prisoners. The temptation, resistance, and victory.
It is frustrating seeing all the efforts put into releasing inmates go up in smoke.
Yeah, they come out, sometimes into the cold embrace of a hostile world. Sometimes there is no one to receive them.
These people from counseling suffer stigmatization and difficulty in giving themselves back to life. They suffer stigmatization of rehabilitating themselves into the society from whence they came before the disruption of their lives.
It is the same thing with the survivors of human trafficking and the sexually exploited. They leave the country with the hope of a brighter future, but are brought back shattered, in despair and hopeless.
Whenever human persons, out of greed, selfishness, conceit, decide to make use of others for their own selfish purposes, try to exploit others, then you demean the purpose for which God actually created the human person. And so we need to take it out completely.
So it is a good news to let people know that human trafficking is not a way of life. With all the promises that they, of course, those who involve in it, but at the end of it, they gain nothing.
And even when family members or friends manage to turn up, the journey towards rehabilitation is usually impossible without a skill.
And when there is a skill, there is no support structure, no availability of basic trade equipment, and no money to procure them. It is a near impossible situation for the ex-prisoner. He needs shelter, at least temporarily, and skills to help him or her maneuver society that has increasingly become a place where dreams come to die.
The Nigerian custodial system as at March 2024. Total inmate population 78,621. Total male inmates 76,854. Total female inmates 1,767. Total convicted inmates 24,444. Convicted male inmates 24,000. Convicted female inmates 444. Total awaiting trial inmates 54,177. Awaiting trial male 52,854. Awaiting trial female 1,323. Crime and other antisocial behaviors are as old as mankind and highlight the point of imperfection of the human species. To promote and ensure social cohesion and balance, the society builds special holding places for those whose conduct and activities threaten societal values.
Globally, we may mention the exception of maybe one country or two like Sweden. It's still acceptable that custodial punishment is one of the ways to deal with crime, especially. Of course, we have the civil offenses, which are not basically crimes, but provide for punishment through keeping the person in correctional custody. Okay, but looking beyond the punishment itself, we look at the place where this punishment is being served. how adequate has our correctional centers or facilities been over the years?
The essence of building prisons or custodial centers is not to destroy those in prisons, but to reform them. Sadly, in spite of efforts by the authorities, only an exceeding small number of those who come out of custodial centers end up redeeming their lives. A much greater percentage continue with lifestyles that take them back into prisons.
The accommodation where they stay, they are made to lie on the bare floor, on mats, and they stay so tight in a cell. Many of them told us that the cells, which should be occupied by 15 to 18 people, have 60 people in them. How reformational in nature can that kind of thing be? So if you look at the practical aspect of it, you will see that it is not reforms, rather it is more of dehumanization.
A defective criminal justice system, an unforgiving, unsympathetic, and fearful citizenry, lack of post-prison opportunities, and absence of adequate opportunities have all combined to work against social reintegration of the formerly incarcerated. The narrative must change. New opportunities for redemption must be embraced. Enter the Justice, Development and Peace Center, Lagos Archdiocese of Catholic Church, JDPC, with an ambition like no other and a vision that is unparalleled. The JDPC intends to build the first truly reformative home, a halfway house for those forgotten by society who once lost their way but are now willing to retrace their steps.
This home is to provide succor and a place where they can find their feet before they are reintegrated into society. The rehab home is to also provide skills. They will be able to acquire skills that will be useful to them in life. A place of shelter, a place to rest, a place to be human beings again. And that is why we are calling on all and sundry to join us, to help us to be able to build this very laudable initiative.
Equipped with over 30 rooms for both male and female, a library for those intent on catching up with the development of the intellect, a fully equipped and functioning workroom for skilled impartation and training.
We know that the work of humanity, the work of bringing about good governance, the work of making sure that the voice of the voiceless is heard, can be quite challenging and daunting. And that's why the fundraising aspect is there.
The JDPC has tried to fill the lacuna left by government for the enhancement and betterment of human beings. And that is why this project to build a rehabilitation home for deportees and for returnee prisoners.
It has been a long journey to get to this moment of actualization. The vision for the halfway home and the attempts to turn vision to reality have not been without disappointment and dashed hopes.
The JDPC is in the line or in the course of producing and building and constructing a rehabilitation and a vocational center. Now, this vocational center, you may want to know, has always been in the mind of the JDPC from the time of our beloved Cardinal, the Archbishop Emeritus of the Archdiocese of Lagos, His Eminence Cardinal Anthony Okoje, when this vision was birthed. But along the line, some things had to stall for funding issues and a few other logistical reasons.
This home is to provide succor and a place where they can find their feet before they are reintegrated into society. The rehab home is to also provide skills. they will be able to acquire skills that will be useful to them in life.
There is hope for everyone regardless of their circumstances. It is true that the seed for societal decay is sown by human hands, sometimes wittingly, other times unwittingly. But it is also a fact that the society has within itself the power to self-regulate and the ability to redeem itself. So it is so with those who find themselves at the bottom of the ladder, such as ex-convicts or inmates, as well as victims of sexual abuse, exploitation, and trafficking. After all, if Mary Magdalene and the thief on the cross could find last-minute redemption, who then can be immune from God's mercy if they open up their hearts?
We know full well that there are a lot of persons who, for want of maybe man's inhumanity to man, have found themselves in very underprivileged and disadvantaged positions in the society. We have a lot of destitutes. We have our friends, our brothers and our sisters from the correctional facilities who have been set free, and sometimes they find nowhere to go. They find nothing to do. We also get to read in the news every now and again the migration processes that take place in the country and how certain of our brothers and sisters are being repatriated and brought back to the country from the Middle East, from Libya, parts of Africa, and of course from Europe. Now, sometimes these persons come back and they are lost at sea, not knowing exactly what they should do. Now, this rehabilitation center is a stopgap where we bring these persons together and train them and let them know that all life is not lost. There is hope for a better Nigeria, and they can make good use of this center to further benefit themselves. It is a center that in its conception had the mind or the thought of bridging the gap between the correctional facilities and the center, putting it simply, from prison to society.
JDPC's Half Home is set up to do one part of what a custodian center is supposed to do, and that is the reformation of the dejected and abandoned after society has imposed its legal punishment on them. This reformation must be followed by reintegration back into the society, and it also applies to victims of human trafficking for sexual purposes.
These young people will not be like gunpowder that we are sitting upon and that will explode and cause much more confusion in the nation.
My word is encouraged to youth that to be one, to not to lose focus, to be determined on what they want to do with their lives, and not to be used by any person for their selfish interests at the detriment of their future and their life.
Unfortunately, the nature and character of the country's socio-political system seem to make these achievements of this noble objective almost impossible.
In the past 6 months, my organization, for example, has released over 50 people in different correctional centers in Lagos State alone. And once they are out, we take them on and we get their stories recorded. And part of our questions to each of them is, how adequate are the facilities where you stayed? Some of them stayed 2 months, but some stayed more than 5 years. We've had situations in the past 8 to 10 months where we released someone who stayed about 8 years without trial, and then someone who the court gave order for his release in 2021 but was now released in 2023. So he stayed extra 2 years and 1 month. In all of these instances, we ask them, how adequate is accommodation, feeding, Medicare, recreation? These are the things that should be basic. They are not yet reformatory in nature. When you talk of reforms, you are now talking of something beyond the ordinary.
The increasing importance of non-governmental organizations to the overall running of the society cannot be overemphasized. Serious governments, especially in growing democracies, increasingly welcome their interventions in the various thematic areas of their engagements.
It takes a person who came in there with a sound mind. It takes that person from soundness of mind to something else. Many of them get out from there not happy, having revenge at the center of at the core of their soul.
From governance issues, healthcare, social welfare initiatives, the criminal justice system, human trafficking, etc. They have continued to complement the activities of governments over the years. The present rehabilitation home of the JDPC is one of such efforts.
The 10th of May too is a day we are setting aside to raise funds, to complement and to further carry out the task, our primary responsibility of spreading the gospel of God's grace to the nations, to the world, to the ends of the earth, especially within the confines of Lagos State.
A place of shelter, a place to rest, a place to be human beings again. And that is why we are calling on all and sundry to join us, to help us to be able to build this very laudable initiative.
The JDPC wants to set a precedent that it hopes others, such as governments, corporate institutions, and philanthropists, would emulate. The body wants to send a message to the rejected and dejected in the society. We have your back. Do not despair. That message is the halfway home. But this can only happen when similar charity-minded individuals and entities identify with this objective to turn a long-nurtured dream to reality.